Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Women Need to Do Better. I'm your host, Shelly Kirschman, confidence coach here. And today, our episode is all about finding balance. And I'm talking about balance between the duty to ourselves versus duty to others. And I really feel like this is such an important topic because so many of us, especially women, we feel torn between taking care of ourselves and taking care of everybody else. And I'm not sure if it's because we are just wired to believe that we're only good enough or that we just feel like society expects that of us. But I don't know about you, but I find myself constantly doing so many things for other people, and it's not that I don't love to do that, but my plate gets full. And then I don't have enough time left over to take care of the things that I need. So I put myself on the back burner. And what that ends up doing is leaving us empty, exhausted, maybe sometimes a little resentful. Because remember, we can't pour from an empty cup. So today, let's unpack this together and we'll talk about how to understand what it is that we really need and what we really want, and about how to communicate those needs so that we can be heard and supported. And most importantly, how we can let go of the guilt and kind of stop that feeling that we get, that compulsion to try to fix everything. It's our fixing everything that ends up taking over our schedules, and we start putting more and more on our plate that sometimes we really don't need to. So by the end of this episode, my goal is that you're going to feel empowered to be able to release anything that doesn't serve you. So that way you really can show up as the best version of yourself. And not just for everybody else, but for you. So figured we should probably start with understanding what it is that we really want and need. And I've pondered this a lot myself when I'm just kind of going through my life, and when I hit that point when I feel frustrated because I just don't have enough time in the day to get everything that I'm trying to get done. And I stop and I'm like, where did I go wrong? Like, how did I end up here? And sometimes we put expectations on ourselves that nobody else does. And we just kind of take things on, and it's those little things. You do one little thing, the next little thing, the next little thing, until next thing we know, we're doing it all. So we need to kind of dial it back and think about what is it that we want, not what's expected of us, not what we think that we should want. This is the time we get to be selfish and really think about what we desire, you know, and this is sometimes a little bit hard for us to separate ourselves from the role that we get caught up with, whether it's a mother, whether it's a significant other, a wife, a friend, an employee, a boss. And all of these hats that we wear, sometimes we lose sight of what we want for ourselves. And so here's the thing: before we can communicate to other people to let them know where our boundaries are at, or what it is that we really want so that they can support us, hear us, and support us, we have to know what that is. And if we don't know what that is, how are we going to ever communicate that? And how are they going to understand? So we have to get really clear on ourselves. And that's going to take a little bit of soul searching. And it's really not as hard as it sounds like, because if you just start asking yourself the questions, you'll find that you do have the answer deep inside you, but you have to kind of quiet the noise and get your mind out of the whole to-do list and all the other things that just occupy your mind, all those ideas and those thoughts that just keep, flooding into your head. Ask yourself, what brings me joy? And think about, when was the last time that you were relaxed, that you laughed, that you enjoyed something, whether it's a friend, whether it's by yourself, whether it was maybe just a walk with the kids, anything. But what brings you joy? When was the last time you felt that? And what makes you feel fulfilled? Like different things give us that feeling of fulfillment and purpose. And those are the things that energize us. So then that brings me to the third question, noticing what kind of things energize us, what energizes me, and then what drains me. Like, what things do I dread? And one of the things that I notice for myself is I can always tell what energizes me because it doesn't take me a long time to do those things. But the things that drain me seem to take forever. So if you're not sure with these questions, what brings me joy, what makes me fulfilled, and then what drains me and what energizes me, you start small if you're not really sure because your body will tell you. Pay attention to your body's reactions. The things that will drain you, you might notice your shoulders tensing up. Maybe your jaw is tense. Maybe your stomach just starts feeling like, uh, you know, maybe you kind of feel like your blood pressure rising. Those are different clues of what drains you and what you need to start setting boundaries with. And then the other side of it is what makes you feel light, what makes you feel giddy or happy, excited. Take note of those things. That's going to help you get really clear on what your needs really are. And that's going to be a lot easier to communicate them effectively once you kind of recognize what they are. And that brings us to the next point, right? Communicating that, communicating our needs so that way we can be supported like we want to be and that we can be heard. Because the truth is, a lot of us struggle with communication. And I see this all the time. And it's not because we don't talk enough, but we seem to talk in different ways. And the way, like for my husband, the way he says something to me, he thinks he's communicating it to me, but I don't hear it the same way. I don't hear what it is that the message behind of what he's saying. We don't always know how to communicate in a way to get that support that we need. So, for example, sometimes maybe somebody will ask you to do something and you say yes when you really meant no. It could be something like, you know, perhaps a friend asks you, oh, we should totally go out and meet up. We haven't seen each other in a while. And part of you wants to, but the other part of you feels guilty because you have so much on your plate and you know that carving time out to see this person, and maybe it's an acquaintance, maybe it's somebody that you just met up in at the grocery store or at the mall or when you were out and about, weren't expecting to see this person, but because it's been so long and they're offering, hey, we should get together soon, a lot of times we react with the, oh yeah, that sounds great, without any real intention of doing it. And we don't say no because we feel bad. If we haven't seen this person in a long time and they're saying, oh, yeah, we should get together, it is kind of rude to be like, yeah, I don't think so. Can you imagine? And so we say yes. Or maybe it's something else where, you know, you're hoping that your partner would help out with cleaning the house. So you drop subtle hints, hoping someone's going to pick it up like, wow, I've been, making dinner all week this week. I sure am tired. And then they don't pick up on it or they just choose to ignore it. And then you feel disappointed why they didn't help. Well, let me tell you something about that. Boundaries and communication are not about hoping that people can read your mind or pick up what you're putting down between the lines. When you say things kind of haphazardly or just kind of not very directly, they're going to put in whatever it is that they want. So if you've been making dinner all week long and gosh, you're really tired and you sure would love a break, nowhere in there did you say, I've been making dinner all week. Would you mind making dinner tomorrow? Because I am really tired and I need a break. And you see the difference? It's about being clear, but still being kind. So, how are they going to read your mind? They're not. So instead of saying something like, I'm really tired, try this instead. Say, I've been feeling overwhelmed and I really need some help with making dinner. Would you mind taking that task off my plate? But you could go even one step further and say, I would love it if you would handle dinner all next week because I am just really tired and I've got so much on my plate that would really free me up to be able to do the things that I need to get done. The clearer you are about what you need, and especially specifics on it, if you can, then it's going to be easier for other people to support you. But what happens if they can't or they won't? Because that's valuable information too. It's good to get that kind of feedback because then it helps you decide who is going to have a seat at your table, right? And what I mean by that is if they are not going to help you with what it is that you're asking for, then you have control over you only. So then you need to figure out, okay, what can I cut out of my schedule so that way I still can do the thing that I've asked them to help me with that they will not be willing to, so that I can still have all of my needs met. And sometimes that means something that you were going to do for them is something that you just don't do anymore, but communicate that. We can always ask for help, but we cannot force people to help us. So that is the important thing to recognize is that the only person saving you is going to be you. Your schedule is what it is. And if you need help communicating that, and then if you cannot get the help that you need, then you need to readjust what you've got on your plate. That brings me to the third point, releasing that need to fix everything. And I know this feeling because I have been there. And sometimes I get caught back up in that loop again. So it's something that is a constant working on. I'm constantly working on myself to remember. I have to remind myself not everything is my responsibility and not everything is my job to fix. Because there's that inner fixer in a lot of us. And I think you know what I'm talking about because we as leaders and we especially as women, we hear other people's problems. And I think maybe part of it is because we think about what we would appreciate and like for someone to do for us. And we just kind of do it for others without them having to ask us. Like how I think that's one of the reasons why it's so much harder for us to ask for help because why don't they notice how much I'm doing? Why don't they notice that I am so exhausted that I haven't got to sit down I haven't sat down once today and it's 8 o'clock at night and we've done all these errands together. We've spent all this time together. How much time have I gotten to be off of my feet? Why don't they notice? And honestly, I don't know why they don't notice, but they don't. So if you don't say something, they're not going to notice and they're not going to do anything. And if you do say something, they still have a choice to do something or not. And just because they won't doesn't mean that you have to be responsible for everything that's on your plate. We are smart and we can figure something out and we adjust. It's what we always do. So that inner fixer that you are inclined to take on more because this has to get done, or this would make someone else's life easy, or if I don't do it, no one else will. It's just easier if I handle it myself. Sure, you've probably had those conversations because I've had those conversations in my head all the time. But the hard truth is that I am not responsible for fixing everything. I'm not responsible for everybody else's comfort or happiness or other people's choices. Let that sit for a second. That inner fixer in you is something that keeps you overwhelmed and stressed. And how much on your plate, right? Your job is to support the people that you care about, but it's not to fix all of their problems or sacrifice your own self-being. Or sorry, your own your own well-being, right? That is not your job. And it's not your job to try to always make their lives easier. That's not love. And I know this because I've done that. Sometimes I fall back into that pattern, but the more that I am aware of it and I'm looking for it and I'm paying attention, the less it happens. Now, I'd love to say that once you fix it, it'll never happen again, but I've not reached that point, so I can't vouch for that. But when I am paying attention to my stress level, and I've been being, it's been easier for me to catch it sooner than later. The more I practice, the better I get. But then again, I'm still falling into it. And so that's when I have to pause before jumping in to try to fix something. And I got to ask myself, is this really my responsibility? Like, that's the first thing. Is this my job? Is this my responsibility? And if it's not, I give myself permission to let go of it, to not worry about it, to not put that on my plate. Because that's another thing that I got to ask myself. If I feel so inclined to do this, am I honoring my own energy and my own boundaries? If it's something that I really want to do, is there a way that I can handle it that I am still honoring my boundaries? I'm honoring myself and my energy and my schedule and my well being. Remember, it is not selfish to let go of things that don't serve you. That is self preservation. And when you're showing up for yourself, you're actually modeling this healthier behavior for everyone around you. You're teaching them what you won't tolerate, you're teaching them how to treat you as well. And if you have kids, you're teaching them how they need to be so that they can take care of themselves as well. And I say to release things that don't serve us. That's something that I say all the time. But what does that actually look like? How do we actually do that? I always say that the step that we need first is the awareness. Because if you're not aware of a problem, you can't fix it, right? It has to start with paying attention. And so some of that awareness could be writing a release list or putting a note on your phone when it comes up. When you write things down that are weighing you down, you got to ask yourself, does this align with my values? Is it serving me or is it draining me? And that way you can tell whether it's something that you need to let go, but you need to pay attention. And I said earlier in this podcast how we feel inside our bodies is the best way to tell whether it's right for us or not. Because our bodies know. We know. We have that inner voice that presents different physical things to our body. It's that tension. Like for me, I know that I carry that stress in my neck and my shoulders and my jaw. And it's interesting how when you're in it, you don't realize it until you start checking in with your body. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm clenching my teeth. Wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. Okay, this must be stressing me out. I didn't think it was because it thought it was no big deal, but physically, yeah, I'm stressed out and I need to take a few deep breaths. I need to reset. And maybe I just need to start smaller. So whatever that discussion was that was stressing me out, you know, think about what that is. Is there one thing that I can shift or change, or can I just walk away? But again, being aware of what is not serving you is going to be the start. And then it's really hard to go big and bold, especially when you're just starting out with setting boundaries and trying to figure out, okay, how do I lessen my plate so that way I have more wiggle room, so that way I can enjoy life, so I can find that joy, so I can find my energy, so I can have a little bit of self time, right? That self care that we all need and deserve. So maybe it's just saying no to one little thing this week or delegating a simple task. That's how you start small, but then, like they say, every small step in the right direction will get you to your goal. So you just start off with a single task that you delegate. And I know sometimes it's hard because someone's not going to do it the way you do it, but would you rather have it done by someone else? And is it that crucial to not have it done your way? Is it worth your peace? Those things to think about. But the practicing it, those are the things that build that boundary muscle. The little things that you do, you start small and you keep implementing it. So maybe that one thing about, okay, well, I'm going to start saying no to, and you choose, you decide what's the one thing that, even if it's a small thing, it gives you a little bit more time to yourself, or it gives you a little bit more breathing room, or a little bit better way to be able to adjust your schedule and have that flexibility when other things get thrown at you. And as you get good at saying no to that small thing, then you build and you say no to a bigger thing, or no to somebody else that maybe is a little more challenging to say no to. But keep instilling those boundaries for yourself. Keep taking those small steps, because the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And then affirmations. I love affirmations. They are one of the things that kind of help reset my brain and help me feel like, okay, I'm okay to do this. This is fine. Things like, I am not responsible for everyone else's happiness. And I do struggle with that one a lot. I don't like to be around grumpy people. It's hard, but it is not their fault they're grumpy, just as much as it's not my fault they're grumpy. They choose to be in whatever mood they are in. And because they choose to be grumpy, does not make it my responsibility to get them out of their funk. And it's also not my responsibility to absorb that negative energy either. I deserve peace. And I can honor my needs without the guilt. So if being around somebody that is in a bad mood, I can still choose to walk away. And sometimes I struggle with that because my husband has a hard time with everything that's happened with him in the last, gosh, it's been about since 2019. And just, he feels like there's just been one thing after the next after the next. And so it's hard sometimes to be around him when he gets down on everything that's happened. And as much as he enjoys spending time with me, sometimes I cannot. And so I choose to walk away. I go to my room, or I will go read a book, or I love listening to music. So I'll put my earpods in and I just take time for me. And it's what I need because I deserve that. I deserve to be happy, and I don't need to be guilty. I don't need to feel guilty because I've been working all day, and now that he wants time with me, but he's not really in a pleasant mood. Well, and that's a boundary, right? I could say, oh, I let me know when you're in a better mood. I'd be happy to spend some time with you. What are some things that you would like to do? Would you like to watch a movie with me? You want to go and do the fire pit in the backyard? There's things that we can do, and we don't have to own other people's feelings. And that's something that I feel not only I've struggled with, but a lot of my clients have struggled with as well, because when it's someone that is close to you that you really care about, it is hard if they aren't willing to do the the growth and the self-development that they need to do. But that goes back to the it's not my responsibility. I can support and I can help in so many ways, but the real work has to come from them. So the real work for me is supporting the ones that I love, but that means me too, because I love myself as well. So I have to prioritize self-care for me as well. And sometimes people think self-care just looks like bubble baths and candles and, you know, dinner by fancy restaurants or something. I don't know. Getting your nails done, getting a massage. Those are all great things. Absolutely. I love those as well. But self-care is about a priority consistently. Like every day, I think it's important every single day that you have time to yourself, just even to be in that quiet space, so that way you can let your thoughts come in. And I like to do what I call bookends. So some self-care in the morning as I start my day, have a little bit of quiet and kind of think about what my day is going to look like. And then the reflection at the end of the day. But consistency, making sure that you protect your energy, you honor your needs. And yes, we do a lot for everybody else. And I always ask myself, if I would do this for someone else, why will I not do it for me? Like I make meals for my husband, and sometimes I want something different. And I have caught myself not making myself something I want because, well, it's just too much work. And then I catch myself because I'm going, if my husband wanted to eat this meal, I would make the effort. I would find the energy to make it. So I've been doing better and I find the energy to make it for myself because that's what I really wanted to eat. So, anyways, in closing, this whole episode was all about making sure that, you can understand the difference between the duty that you have to other people and the duty that you have to yourself. So it's about balance, true balance, honoring both what you love to do for other people, because that's really why we do it. We do love taking care of other people and making their lives a little bit easier, but we also deserve that for ourselves. And so when you start putting a little bit more importance on yourself, self-love, and knowing that you need to rise up and put yourself as the same priority as the people that you take care of. You are not less than. You are worth just as much. And in fact, you're worth even more to them because of how much that you contribute to their lives. So the more you put the self-love in place on you, the easier you're going to find it to set those boundaries, to communicate more clearly, and to release the guilt. Because it's that guilt that keeps you in that cycle and stuck in overgiving. You are totally worthy of the same care and attention that you give to everybody else. And so we need to start showing up for ourselves. And who is better equipped to show up for ourselves than us? Because it's what we do for everybody else. And do it not because you're obligated, but because it's a place from your heart. It's what you want to do. You love yourself and you love others. And the more time that you give that love to yourself, the less resentment you're going to have, the less overwhelm you're going to have, the more energy you're going to have. And it's a win-win. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Put some comments or DM me. I always love connecting with my listeners. And I've got a store in my bio. I've got some audios that are affirmations if you're interested in that. But for the most part, Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work. And thank you for choosing you. Until next time, ladies, take care and be blessed.